Okay. The theme of this presentation is conflicting data and ambiguous pronouncements. I don't need to go into details about that, but everybody here, all of you who are investors, all of you who are speculators, all of you who are also savers and consumers, you must understand what I mean when I say there's conflicting data and ambiguous pronouncements. The interesting thing is that whenever you see any data point in this country, what makes it interesting is that you scratch your head and say, okay, 1, can this be true? 2, what does it mean? 3, what's going to happen next? Those are the 3 things that come to every Nigerian, no matter whether you're in the investment banking world or in the ordinary Joe blogs. So today we are going to review Q1, review and implications. We're going to look at globalization of wealth and investor sentiment. What you must know, over the past 2-3 years or 5 years, everything that happens in Nigeria is captured in the global markets, and everything that happens in global markets has a trickle-down effect. In fact, at times, major and profound effect on Nigeria. Simply like you saw what happened in the last 7 days about what happened in the Suez Canal. It was news, and when the Suez Canal, when it was reopened yesterday, it was also news. It affected the price of oil, it affected our revenues, it affected our entire wherewithal. We will then look at Q2, key indicators to watch. We'll look at investment opportunities and confluence of yields, and then we'll look at investment risks and summarize and conclude. Since we don't have too much time, let me just go into business right away. What happened in the first quarter? Ade Buraimo just very eloquently put it to you. 1, we had GDP growth in Q4. The next data on GDP growth will come out in May. So Q4 GDP came up at 0.11. Was it a surprise? Yes. Why was it a surprise? It was a surprise because we had the NSAS protest on the 22nd of October. It lasted for about 10 days. We thought the economy had been strangulated. But lo and behold, what happened? It was trading, it was Lagos, it was transportation, and it was the social media, the true and real economy of Nigeria. In other words, oil production, oil price, agricultural activity, even the, the bandits and the herdsmen were not affected by NSAS. They didn't go on any strike. As a matter of fact, they intensified because the police all ran into the bush and the herdsmen came out of the bush. We had, in this quarter, we've seen our oil price and production. If you look at the slide on the second, on the right side, everything in Q1 has been more or less positive. We've seen oil price go as high as 70, 71, and has dropped all the way to 63 now. It also fell to 60 at some time. The long-term view of oil, we'll come and talk about that in a few minutes. What's our production? Our production has stayed flat at about 1.5, and that is because of our OPEC quota. The OPEC is meeting tomorrow on Thursday, and the likelihood is that they maintain the same quota. What does this mean? It means that our revenues are going to be pretty much stable. Our balance of trade, on the other hand, has actually become positive. Why? Because our imports are still constrained, but our export revenue is increasing. So we are going, what actually dropped sharply between 2018, 2019, 2020 is picking up in this quarter of 2021. As a matter of fact, it started picking up in the last quarter of 2020. As far as growth is concerned, we've already said that growth is at 0.11, but what does 0.11 growth mean? It means that it is more or less 3% or 3.1% below the official population growth rate, which is captured by the National Population Commission at 3.2. NBS says it's about 2.6, but we take the National Population Commission. The growth is 8% below potential GDP. The total factor productivity is also negative. I don't want to bore you with economic terms, but the reality is that where is this growth coming from? There are 46 activities that are covered and reviewed by the Bureau of Statistics. But the fastest growing sector was quarrying and mining. Okay, so why quarry and mining? What does it mean? This screen is not showing. Okay. Sorry, I think we have a problem with the sharing the screen. This is the document. Are you seeing it now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'll just flash back a few. So 1, 2, these are the slides you just missed. And this is where we are now. So there are 46 activities that are monitored by the Bureau of Statistics. There are more than that in Nigeria, but 46 key activities. Of these 46 key activities, in Q4, we had about 17, now going on to about 27 that were expanding, and the others were either flat or contracting. But the key ones that I want us to watch are quarrying and mining, which means that those who are making cement, those who are making limestone, those who are making gypsum, those who are legally or illegally mining gold, those guys are making out like bandits. Telecoms and information technology and telecoms, or whatever, the ICT, information communication, and right now, these guys are also growing fast, 17.64. You can see them all over. The reason why we are here today virtually is because of them. So every minute we spend on this, we are making money for them, and they are expanding their activity. And you can see from the results of MTN, you can see from the results of others. And guess what? I understand that Facebook and some other guy, they are going to drop their own cable in Africa because they believe that the 1.2 billion consumers in Africa is the market of the future. No matter how poor or rich they are, but that's what's going to happen. And when they do come with their own bandwidth, I can imagine what's going to happen to this space. I suspect and I believe that you are going to see PayPal, Apple, and others coming to the market aggressively as well to take over the consumers here. Cement manufacturing, which is what I call building material, is growing, and you can see what's happening to the top 5 capitalized companies. 2 of them are cement manufacturers. Dangote Cement, Boa, they're not far behind, is Lafarge. Broadcasting doesn't employ a lot of people, but it's becoming a major thing. You have channels, you have Arise, you have TVC, and you have radio broadcasts, so many radio stations and FM stations across the country. And you can see it ties in very well with Nollywood and the movie and entertainment industry. Crop production, big time, 4.42, but even agri grew by about 2.48, I think, if I check. And then what you're seeing here, crop production is big time, and that's doing well. What are the ones that are suffering? The ones that are suffering, and we'll come back to the companies in these sectors, the ones that are suffering are oil refining. You don't need to be told that. You know what the problem is with oil refining. You saw, anyway, in the downstream sector, you saw Total's figure yesterday, and they're quite interesting. But what was interesting about Total? They had earning per share of 6 naira and 8 kobo. And guess what? They had declared dividend per share of what? 6 naira and 8 kobo, which means that they harvested everything that they, very interesting number. I saw that last night and I said, wow, this is interesting. So they say, make hay while the sun is shining. As far as these guys are concerned, it's raining now, so they're not going to keep the umbrella in the boot of the car when it's raining. They brought everything out. Air transport, yes. What do I say here? Air transport. Port Harcourt International Airport is opening on the 15th of April. And I think 1 or 2 other airports are opening. We have problems with Emirates. And you see, the truth is that where I come from, they say, if you argue with the king, you will stay long on your knees. So Nigeria having this tax with Emirates, and guess what? People thought they would use Qatar and others. The United Arab Emirates have come out and said, no, we do not trust your test. We will test you before you board our planes, right? And also, we will test you when you get there as well. Even if your test was okay when you boarded, if on board anything happened, which is unlikely, we'll test you again when you arrive there, and then we know what to do. So international traffic is opening up. Domestic traffic is there, but this sector contracted, guess what, by 51%. So it's not enough. Air Peace is all over the place. Arik is using Mongolian aircraft on a wet lease basis. And Ibom Air, I understand, is doing some interesting things. Asman has been stopped from flying. So, sorry, we see this, but as long as kidnapping and ransom is a big business, I think aviation has a potential. Aviation is not taken in isolation. Coal mining, well, this is a big problem because of climate change and things. So I think coal will continue to suffer. Oil and gas, which is crude oil, and the rig count last time I checked was 7. It used to be 6 before, but we are still having low activity. The activity includes exploration, production, seismic, deep water, land and swamp, and offshore. Accommodation and food services, naturally, the hotels, if people are not flying around, both domestically and others, the hotels are suffering. The hotels suffer because apart from food and beverages, the hotels make a lot of money from the events, the AGMs and all. So rather than taking the big convention center for your AGM with thousands of people, you take one room and everything is done by social distancing. The weddings, people have become very, very innovative and creative. They are spending 1/10 of the budget of a wedding 2 years ago on what they are wedding today. So parents are celebrating while in-laws are crying. So that's what we've seen. So there's what we call the Purchasing Managers Index, which is an indicator for you guys who are investors. You look at this to see if it's increasing. It tells you that the cycle is beginning to turn around. So we've seen the PMI, which was all in negative. If you look at all of 2020 and GDP, everything was negative, but you see both are now pointing towards positive in Q2. So why? There's casualization of labor. People are saying, okay, rather than fire you all together, you have a driver and you say, driver, come 2 days a week or 3, I'll pay you 2/3 of your salary or half of your salary. The other time when you are free, go and do Uber, right? Not with my car, but even with my car, then I have to share in the Uber take. So people are becoming innovative. But casualization of labor, informal sector, and those activities are affected. Another major variable that we have to look at is what is shared as federal allocation for both federal and states. If you look at it in the last year, you've seen it increase. And the question you're going to ask me, Mr. Rewane, how come the economy contracted? It was in recession. People are being fired, and yet the amount of money shared by the government is increasing. Why? 3 reasons. 1, the collection of revenue has increased sharply. 2, the exchange rate at which they've been sharing the naira to the dollar has moved from before when this started was about 306, 320. It is now 380, and likely to be 411. So we expect this to be above 700 and something naira. It's now 629 billion naira compared to 614 in the fourth quarter of last year. One is the exchange rate, 2 is collection, and 3 is the fact that because of identity, all this NIN and all sorts of things, yeah, they can pin you down and they can collect more revenue. So FIRS is shaking down people, VAT has increased, and so they're getting more. And more than anything else, there's all the question that the subsidy on petroleum products, yes, we have subsidy on, yes, there's under recovery, but the reality is that in the last, since this government came in, we went from 87 to 86.5, then went back up, and it went all the way through. So, and if you listen to Ade Buraimo on channels the other day, he said it was exactly 1,000 days or something, no, 10,000 days ago that they increased the price. That was the time the price of petrol went from below 1 naira per liter. It was 70 kobo per liter. No, 75 kobo per liter when Shonekon increased it to 5 naira per liter, from 70 kobo to 5 naira per liter on November 8, 1993. And exactly 10 days after, he was overthrown. So there's a link between things and all of that. So I just wanted to know that. Total pension assets, people employed, and the work you do, you guys are investment bankers, so you trade, you originate, you distribute, and you carry out research that we're doing now. Total pension assets has grown, which is compulsory savings, from 10 trillion naira to 12.31 trillion. Please remember that the Nigerian economy is about 150 trillion. So about almost 10% of 10% of our total GDP is saved as compulsory savings under pension assets. Not necessarily because of savings, but because the stock market could be. So you can have appreciation in value. You can also have diminution in value by attrition of workers that are drawing on their pension. So has been choppy. Ade Buraimo mentioned it. I think Doyin also mentioned that. The stock market has been all over the place, but why you are concerned, your fund managers, Alpha Morgan, are concerned. We are concerned as economists. And why? 4 concerns: liquidity in the system, there's excess liquidity, and there's transmission effect of liquidity. The yields on treasury bills have been kept artificially low, and that has driven all sorts of arbitrage opportunities. There's also the carry trade by foreign portfolio investors. There's dividend speculation. GT Bank is going to declare dividend, MTN is going to let me buy, and then when I capture my dividend and I sell, there's some short selling, there's some speculation going on. Then more than anything else, earnings. The stock price is the present value of future earnings. National savings, total national savings, I just said 10% was in pension. Another 11.8%, bringing the total to 21.8%, is GDP, national savings as a ratio of GDP, which is interesting. Value of transactions. In all of these things, last year during the lockdown and everything, we saw value of transactions double from 8 trillion all the way to 19 trillion. Then guess what? In December, it started coming down. Why? Because transactions, people are now beginning to feel the bite of a squeeze in their personal income, squeeze in their disposable income, a squeeze, in fact, a crushing of their discretionary income. So you've had so many announcements. What you hear, what you see, and what you feel are 3 different things. At times, it could be the same thing. So Nigeria operates a managed floating exchange rate structure. That's what the governor says. There's a flat rate of 6.98 on USSD transactions. Wow, what was I paying before? Just let me do my transactions. Then 60 days, Naira for dollar promo. You get 5 Naira for every dollar you bring in. Really? If I go to the Malam, I get something more. Banks and other financial institutions restricted from, in fact, cryptocurrencies are banned, but if you watch channels every day, you see them saying that Bitcoin, that. So what's the ban if people are trading it openly on television? As a matter of fact, yesterday or day before, Tesla says that you can buy your, you can buy your Tesla vehicles with Bitcoin. In any case, he invested $1.5 billion there. The parallel market is tainted market meant for illegal transaction, bribes, and all of that. Yes, this morning, what were they discussing? They said the people that, the bandits and the, what do you call them, herdsmen and terrorists and all of that, that when they go into they don't go by road. So they say, why don't you wait for them on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway and all the way to Ilorin? They say they don't go by road. They go, but through the bush trail. And from the bush, helicopter or whatever picks them and they go off and they carry their dollars. So that market exists. And when they kidnap you and they call it Naira, they convert it through the BDCs into dollars, and they are drinking tea and champagne in Dubai the next week and preparing for the next attack. That was what they were discussing on channels this morning. So there are comments, the MPC left all parameters unchanged. What does it mean for you? There's what we call interest rate sensitive instruments, which are bonds, treasury bills, treasury certificates, and there are also earnings sensitive instruments, which are like equities. And also equities are also interest rate sensitive because there's an inverse relationship between those two. So any announcement, any pronouncement on interest rates, and interest rates don't depend on announcement, but you know that when they move interest rate, it changes everything. So I've also gone through this. Now, another set of announcements. Monday last week, the Vice President said, we have begun the unification and convergence of exchange rates. Infraco will grow to 15 trillion naira in assets. Please regulate out of opportunity and not fear, right? With knowledge. He was referring to cryptocurrency. So this is Nigeria now. Because of democracy, because of difference in opinion, we are beginning to see that people can differ without actually having a battle, even within the same government, the same cabinet. Yesterday, a minister was, Mr. Amechi was talking about his views, and he said, I disagree entirely with my colleague in the cabinet. In the British system, we have what we call collective responsibility. Once the cabinet has spoken, you cannot go against it. But here with ministers having a healthy disagreement on policies on television, and there's nothing about it. In fact, it was a welcome, it was a healthy development. The Minister of Finance and Budget and Planning says there's only one official rate, not fixed rate. She also said we will no longer borrow from the IMF, but we will use concessionary, bilateral, and multilateral borrowing. Import duty on brand new cars reduced from 35 to 10. The minister also said yesterday was launching the export grant facility. Pat O'Neill said the federal government will securitize its debt with the central bank, 10 trillion naira. She also moved the bond rates to high levels, right? AMCON says they have 16 trillion naira as bad loans. Remember what we said earlier on, total pension assets in the country, 13 trillion naira. AMCON alone has bad loans of 16 trillion naira. If you knock one against the other, there's nothing left. FEC has approved $1.5 billion for the application of the Port Harcourt refinery. Well, that's work in progress, and Nigerians have very different and distinct views about using $1.5 billion for a revelation of a refinery. All I know is that if I'm going to sell my car, I would rather let the new owner fix it rather than me going to paint it to another color. There will be no new taxes imposed on petroleum products, alcoholic beverages, and telecom service providers. Well, that's from the CG of Customs, but I do know that there are some new taxes and indirect taxes. Federal government will concession 12 highways to the private sector. If you read the papers today, it's very clear. They've named the roads and they've asked you to come. I think one of them the first one I saw was Asaba to Benin. I saw Benin to Shagamu. I saw Lokoja to Benin. I saw some, they're in the 6 political zones. Onitsha to Owerri, and Enugu to Port Harcourt, Kaduna. Anyway, Damatu, they're all in the papers today. I just saw that this morning. So what did they say? They said, if you want to put way bridges, if you want to have car wash, if you want to have a eatery and all of that, you apply. And they think they're opening the bids today. So Fashola made that announcement. So I think we've discussed that. Now, one thing I want to take you back to is the globalization of wealth and investor sentiment. You see, before now, everything in Nigeria say, oh, we're homegrown solution. We don't, we're not going to do anything. It's what, whatever we want, blah, blah, blah. No, what are we saying? Whether you like it or not. Oh, we had WAEC. No, we don't like WAEC. We have NECO. Oh, we don't like NECO. We're going to have JAMB. Then the snake swallows money. So that's the homegrown solution. The point is that the world is becoming one. WAEC is for the whole of West Africa, English-speaking West Africa, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, and Ghana. What is wrong? I mean, Ghana and Sierra Leone is not more than Lagos State and Oyo State put together. So why must we, why can't we just have it and dominate it and make sure that, yet we want to be president of ADB, we want to be DG of WTO, yeah, and at the same time we don't want to do. So I have my views on globalization. I think globalization is here to stay and we can't do anything about it. So One of the global events that we cannot ignore is this cryptocurrency. And I read this morning about the Americans being behind the curve. If the Chinese launch their own cryptocurrency, the Chinese have been trying to debunk the dollar as the #1 reserve currency in the world, and 75% of transactions in the world, letters of credit, payments, and everything is done by dollars. In fact, the dollars outside the United States is about 10 times the dollars in cash inside the United States. If you visit anybody in the United States, if any of them has more than $10 in their wallet or $20, you'll be lucky. Nobody carries. If you bring out a $100 bill and anywhere, they try to see whether it's a forged note. You know, nobody goes around with $1,000 in their pocket or their wallet in America. But if you follow the people boarding flights in Nigeria, they have their 2,000, they have their this and so. So the reserve currency status of the United States dollar, the store of value because of inflation, the medium of exchange, the unit of account, the legal tender, cryptos have all of these things. And this crypto thing started, remember it was Zuckerberg that started this talk, and then they shut it down. Now, but the reason, the biggest crime in America is and it's life imprisonment, is counterfeiting the currency. So the currency is a store of value, it's a promissory note, it's everything. It's backed by gold in Fort Knox, fiduciary issue and all of that. Now, this development is about to disrupt the most conservative, the oldest, almost the oldest structure in the world. As far back as 1640, when the goldsmiths, Rothschild and others started. Now they want to change it. And because the government took it over, it was from goldsmiths, the government took it over and became everything. And even during the world wars, they counterfeit your currency and throw it in, and that destroys a country. Now, who will control this currency? Who? Some t-shirt wearing kid in California from Facebook and all, and who is going to, or Apple or PayPal and all of a sudden, governments are losing control. What's the use of having the Federal Reserve? What's the use of having if some people somewhere can determine how much is circulating and people accept? Once people accept it, you're done. That's it. Once it becomes an acceptable means of exchange, forget it. So I want you to keep your eyes on that. But I'm telling you, please don't jump into it, but keep your eyes on it because things change. We sat down here, nobody knew that what the mobile phone today, you will not believe that 20 years ago, there was not like a mobile phone. 25 years ago, there was no mobile phone. And today, if you take somebody's mobile phone, you've taken his life. 25 years ago, everybody who had a current account had a checkbook. Today, 90% of the people who have current accounts have no checkbooks. They have their card and they have their PIN, right? So it's a different world. So one other thing I want you to bear in mind, because we're running out of time, is the because you have been compelled to stay home, because you have been compelled to stay in your country, in the last 1 year, the money you are spending going abroad for your shopping, for your duty free, for that and that, you've kept it. Total forced savings because of this has come to $3 trillion. $3 trillion in a $90 trillion economy is about almost 6% or 5% of total GDP in 1 year. And when these people come out, people who haven't traveled for 18 months, 24 months, when they come out, I want you to imagine what how they're going to spend their money. If they have saved it, some have already finished it in other ways. So it could push global growth by up to 8 to 10%. In addition to that, you have the vaccine nationalism. All of us are talking about vaccine. Now Johnson & Johnson said, okay, we'll give you 400 million vaccinations. And somebody said, oh, South Africa is going to be the lead. I said, the South African population is not up to 45 million people. So even if you give every one of them, and the people below 15 who cannot take the vaccination in South Africa is probably 1/3. So maximum, if you vaccinate everybody in South Africa is 30 million. What are the remaining 370 million? So by the time, and Johnson & Johnson is only one shot. Don't forget that South Africa is He's vaccinating 200,000 people a day with AstraZeneca and the other things. So the vaccinations are going to come. We are going to get them, and it's going to give us herd immunity and all that. So what does it mean? Look at the world. Look at our trading partners. Look at the US. The new projection, it was 4.5, now 6.2, in fact, more. Biden said, I will vaccinate 100 million people in 100 days. He's doing 200. In fact, he's going to 300. China projected 8.4. Well, guess what? The Chinese, 20 years ago, when they had the SARS and bird flu, they were using masks. So for them to go to mask up was nothing. It was just business as usual for those guys. So the lockdown was nothing. So the Eurozone flat and emerging market from 5 to 6. So commodity super cycle, we see commodity bouncing. There are 3 possible scenarios on global inflation. First, transitory; second, longer lasting; and third, more durable and consequential problem with multifaceted domestic. So the US Fed is unlikely to increase interest rates initially, but I tell you something, they will not increase it. Everything in America is politically motivated. The midterm election is November 2022. They will make sure, one, that there's a stimulus package. They will make sure they bring unemployment down. They will ensure that oil prices come down. Then after the midterm election, when the Democrats have, maybe with some luck, control of the Senate and the House fully, then the true picture begins to emerge. So let's go to Nigeria's trading partners. I've already told you, look at Nigeria's trading, previous forecast, new forecast. Look at Nigeria's share of global trade, which had come down to 0.24. It's going to go up to 0.32. So global trade, opening of your borders, African Continental Free Trade Agreement, all of this are going to drive. And so as wealth managers, you ask yourself, which companies in Nigeria can benefit from this? It's not by coincidence that GT Bank says we are acquiring a bank in Kenya. Why? Because UBS in 22 countries, I think, in Africa, 22, right? 20, right? You have, what's the name? Stanbic. You have ETI, all of these guys. So the African Access Bank as well, in Mozambique, in all sorts of weird places. Everybody's going there. So why are they doing that? Because Dangote is in 14 countries, because airpeace is flying across, because many multinationals are saying, look, let's produce in where we have comparative and competitive advantage and sell across because the borders are now open. So keep your eyes on the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. What has happened to our investment flows? Look at our share of total investment flows have dropped to 0.23 in 2020, but look at what's going to happen in 2021, 0.33, 0.41. So what does this mean? You'll find that Alpha Morgan and others will be recipients of investment flows. Total investment flows have increased. Our share of investment flows will also increase. So keep your eyes on the ball, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. Suez Canal blockage, we saw what it is. It means now it's open after a couple of days. So what are we looking at? The things to look out for: April 1, OPEC plus meeting, March inflation, April 15, April inflation, May 17, GDP May 24, and I think there's also a Muslim holiday in April. Yeah, I heard there's a Salah holiday. Okay. Okay, so these are the indicators, the economic indicators. We see negative GDP growth marginally, but then it goes back to positive. The PMI, we see it was negative, it goes back to positive in Q2. National savings, we see an increase because interest rates are increasing. Money supply, we see an increase. Inflation, we see an increase before it starts to taper towards the end of the year and next year. 91-day treasury bills have gone from 1.21 to 2%, which is almost 100% higher than what it was. Whilst at the long end, we are seeing one-year treasury bills at 6-7%. Now, what it means, therefore, is your investors, the investors on this call, are saying that, look, if my yield on buying Dangote, my yield on buying MTN, my yield on having a GT Bank or Zenith Bank is going to give me 5%, why don't I just sell the stocks now at a high and put the money in one-year treasury bills? In any case, treasury bill revenue is not taxable. So when you add the tax benefit to the effective yield, you see that you are getting much more. And that has changed the interbank market and bank deposit market in the last 1 week or two. And it's going to change it and never come back again. External reserves, we've seen it hanging around 34. We think that the central bank will be forced to sell Forex and bring that down to 33. The exchange rate, 486 in the parallel market, to stay around that, but probably appreciate if the INE window is allowed to move towards 415, where we think it will be. Stock market capitalization, it's going to be choppy, but I don't think some of the earnings will justify the current price. So we've talked about GDP, and we're not going to bore you on that. We've talked about the growing and we talked about the growth drivers, and we'll go on straight on to sectors that are driving growth: construction, agriculture, and then heightened inflationary pressures. What are the things that are causing inflation? Currency pass-through, money supply saturation, the federal government borrowing money from the central bank, supply shortages caused by insecurity and bad roads, and petrol and kerosene prices, logistics constraints, bad bridges, bad roads, and then higher taxes which are passed on to the consumer. Another thing that is happening here is that the institutional, corporate, and retail demand of products. I had a long meeting yesterday with somebody who has a good farm in Kwara State. And he told me that he's getting, before he has to move his cassava all the way down towards Ibadan and others to sell. People are coming to him in Basita to buy his cassava. And what are they using the cassava for? Because they have sugar in Basita, and you also have cassava. They have the plant that can convert each of these into ethanol. So the cassava is not coming here. And once the cassava is used for ethanol, there's less around for gari, right? And less for starch, because cassava is used to make starch. Cassava is used to, so I want you to imagine that the same thing. The largest producer of ethanol in the world is, guess what? United States. How do they make the ethanol? From corn. So you can use corn, but since corn is very expensive in Nigeria, people use cassava. But because the price of corn has gone up, people are going to cassava, the price of cassava has gone up. Now, but let's break it down. You have retail consumption of corn for eating. You have Nestle using corn for golden morn. You have livestock feed using corn to make feed, right? So the demand for corn, and that's why it has gone from 2,000 to 20,000 naira a ton, and it's not going to go back. The same thing is happening for maize. The same thing is happening for rice. Okay, so, and you're torn between this. Is inflation bad? No, inflation is not bad if it is leading to an increase in supply. But quantity supplied is different from aggregate supply. You need a breakthrough to shift the aggregate supply curve to the right. That means you need technology, you need massive investment. And that's what you're going to see in maize, in yams, in cassava and rice. So look out for the agricultural chain and the flow through to the fast moving consumer good business. This is just exchange rate mathematics. We know where it's going to be. The fair value is about 507, but it's coming back to 486. And when things change, it's going to get better. Interest rates continue here, and we'll show you what it looks like in a few minutes. Basically, at the end of the day, it's all about investment. Consumption is important for us because that is what will make those, what people consume is what drives those companies like Dangote and everybody, Nestle. But if Dangote and Nestle and others do not invest, you will not have the consumption and you will not get the jobs. And if you don't get the jobs, you will have insecurity and banditry. So for us in this webinar, we are looking at investments. Total investment in Nigeria is $116 billion. We need to get that, and it's 24% of GDP. We need to get it higher. It used to be as low as 14.7. But don't be deceived. There's what we call stranded investments, investments that are not being used, and that is leading to negative total factor productivity. So this is what we are getting. But investment, what is saved is what is invested. What is invested is what is creates jobs. So if savings goes down because interest rates are low, investment will go down. And when investment goes down, also jobs, unemployment will increase. So let's go and see what happens. This is a rate of inflation 17.3, rate of interest 2%. This means that you are losing money by sleeping and waking up. Now let us see, for example, right? The return on, if you invested in the stock market in the last 12 months, you got 81.52, you got a negative return, right? In the last 12 months. The rate of inflation in the last 12 months average was 14%. The exchange rate depreciated by 16%. So by the time your real rate of return is only 50, you got, okay, equities was positive, 81%. So you got 50% return, but it's a speculative return. I wouldn't hold on to that. If you invested in federal government bonds, 9.59, inflation took 14%, you are out of money. Exchange rate took another 16%, so you are 21.28 underwater. Treasury bills, you are 28.76 underwater. And bank deposits, you are 25.87 underwater. So why would you invest? So if you do not invest in stock market, and not everything in the stock market is good money, that's a bubble there. So you got to think about that. But this is what, I'm just showing you what the return is. I'm sure Ade Buraimo and Doyin will love this. Okay. Now, this is the quarterly performance of the stock market. You can see it here, but beware, be careful, right? These things, there's a lot of what they call pump and dump. There's a lot of manipulation of the market, so we have to be careful here. So NTBs today, 7%, dividend yield about 7.02, NFC, all-share index about minus 2.9. Now, in the last 7 weeks, negative, 1 week, it has been positive. We think that it's not over yet until it's over. Stocks that we like or we should look at, top 5, Zenith Bank has done, earnings grew by 10%. Their stock price has gone up by 74%. So the P is still 3, but just think about it. Either the stock was totally undervalued or something is happening there. MTN, earnings went up by 1%, but their share price has gone up by 63%. Obviously, we like MTN and we like its future, but 63% appreciation in price as against a 1% earnings. And guess what? MTN is going to unload, MTN Group is going to sell 14% of its holding. So the supply of MTN stocks this year is going to increase. And when the supply increases, what happens to price? Price comes down. However, MTN is a good buyer, and you don't go into a stock market for one year return. You go in a long, and I tell you something, they've sold out in the Middle East, they're focusing in Africa, and they have it covered. They have their Momo, they have their PSB, and GT Bank, earnings went up by 2.3, their share price went up by 71%. Wow. Dangote, earnings went up by 38%, and stock price went up by 69% again. So is there a bubble? Maybe, but not this 5 stocks, but just something to think about. So here we are. These are just the earnings which you all know. And you can see that, you can see the year-to-date change. So far, GT Bank has lost 4%, Zenith has lost 9%, Fidelity has lost 6.3%, and I think Sterling Bank has lost 26%. Okay, we took 2 tier 1 and 2 tier 2, but the banks have cost to income ratios to worry about, and you know better than I do that all of them are struggling to cut down their costs and increase their bet. I tell you something, the USSD, the telcos have slashed their discount from 5 naira to 2.2 naira 50 kobo for now, right? And that means that's half of that revenue. I know one bank that did 96 billion naira on USSD revenues. That bank will be lucky to do 10 billion naira this year. So what happens to the 86 billion naira? They've got to look for that revenue from somewhere else. Will they get it? They'll be searching for a long time. NPLs, yeah, in a recession, loans go bad. You saw what Amcon said. Again, look at those banking earnings and look at the quality of earnings and look at how strong the loan book is. How many of them, look at their impairments. If I take you back to that slide just now, you see impairment level up 64% of Zenith, up 298% for GT Bank, up 402 by Fidelity, up 131% for Sterling. So impairments, which means that the impairments of today were the questionable loans of yesterday. The impairments of tomorrow are the questionable loans of today. Okay, insurance industry will love this. We like Custodian Allied, we like ICO, and we like Mansard. Insurance is growing. Why? Because If your house is burned today, you cannot replace it. The replacement cost of a property today is much higher than the sale price. So you better keep it where you are and don't get anything. So we like the insurance industry. So what's the stock market outlook? Choppy, bearish, but as interest rates begin to increase, you begin to see some other things. Dangote's share buyback is an interesting development. MTN's divestment of 14% stake, but MTN is going to unload plenty of earnings. They're selling their interest in Jumia, in IHS, and so there's a lot to look at MTN. Are there risks? Yes. Inflation risk, exchange rate policy risk, interest rate risk. Another economic recession, not likely. Outbreak of COVID, yeah, COVID. Or slow rollout of vaccines? No, we don't think so. There's already herd immunity. 90% of Nigerians on the street have already been infected and cured without knowing that they had it. So they are going around. So and that's why Q1 GDP could slip back into negative territory. Inflation could reach 18% before tapering. Interest rates will maintain upward trend. Treasury bill rates will go to 8 to 10%. And CBN could ease forex rationing. NAFEX rate could trade from between 410 and 415. At least 2 million Nigerians would have been vaccinated by the time we meet next. Thank you very much. Crude oil prices, Brent will be at 59 to 64. External reserves will go to 33. Policy ambiguity and uncertainty to taint investor sentiment. Credit rating, I don't think Nigeria will lose it. It's stable outlook. Nigeria will proceed for a roadshow in Q2 to raise some money, some billions of dollars. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much.
I'm sorry I overshot the time.
Thank you so much.
But there we are.
Yeah, we had an amazing time, and we have like a lineup of questions. So I'm just going to go straight into the questions. And
okay.
Let me see if I can just pull them up. Admin, I'm double clicking on the Q&A. It's not coming up. That's good. Okay, one of the questions we had was, how do you beat inflation with your investment strategies? Because like we saw, inflation hit 17.3. In your presentation, you said it could hit 18 by April. How would a typical investor strategize to beat this?
Let me say something. You said you can't catch a falling knife. So what you do is to try and outperform. So outperform rate of inflation. You should look for returns that will give you that return that will outperform inflation. Therefore, you look for sour stocks. You buy into weakness and sell into strength. Look for, I give you an example. When Boeing had the 737 MAX problem, there was one crash in Indonesia, the other one in Ethiopia. Boeing stock dropped all the way down to the bottom. I was buying Boeing. When BP had the problem of the Hurricane Katrina, I was buying BP, right? I buy into weakness because I know the fundamentals of that company is strong, and therefore it will recover, right? So today I'm buying international airlines, JetBlue, Southwest. I'm buying because I know whether we like it or not, once the vaccines are here, people will start flying again. I'm buying hotels, right? Because I know they will recover. But I'm not going, some of them, if you watch CNN yesterday, there are companies that say closed forever. When they say closed forever, we're not coming back. You should buy the ones that are not going to be closed forever. Look for the top guys, right? So when MTN had their fine, the high of MTN's market capitalization was $12 billion. It dropped to $1 billion. The stock price went from $11 a share in the New York Stock Exchange to $1.50. A lot of people, including myself, we bought. Today it's back. It's at $6. So from $1, we made 600%. So I'm not saying speculate. Some things go and never come back, right? But if I buy 5 and 4 of them come back and 1 goes away and goes forever, I'm happy, you know.
I think the lesson for us, especially as investment managers, is, you know, to have products that are equities based to sell to our customers, because not every retail investor out there has the skills and the wherewithal to play the stock markets, and so they need to rely on people like us to provide them with those equity based products that can help them improve their yield.
You know, as a money manager, let me put it this way. You know what happened in the US in the last 1 week? The guys the fund managers who ran into this difficulty and started selling, which shook Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley. People are about to recover from it. But, you know, the money manager cannot be too speculative. So you package these things, have risk hedges, and you swap some of the risk, but some of these things are no-brainers. There's no day, there are only 2 aircraft manufacturers in the world, Boeing or Airbus. So except you're going to start, Embraer is the guy in Brazil. So whether you like it or not, Boeing will recover and has recovered. Whether you like it or not, you can't stop BP from, you can't stop Shell, right? Now look at these electric cars, Tesla. Now BMW, Volkswagen, Mercedes-Benz, Daimler have all said we are making our electric cars. In 3 to 4 years from now, you are not going, I can assure you, by 2024, you, Doyin, will not, when you are buying a car, you'll be buying an electric car. And you will not go near any petrol station. All you are going to be doing is buying a battery for your car. So can you think about all the petrol stations all over this country? Are you now surprised why a company declared 6 naira 8 kobo as their earnings and declared dividend of 6 naira 8 kobo? Because they know that their days are numbered and the electric car is going to take over.
And it's interesting you mentioned that.
Are you surprised that one bought Intercontinental Hotel far away from selling petrol? Why? They know
they're pivoting.
The electric car is here.
It's interesting you mentioned electric car. On my vacation, I took the very first test drive of a Tesla. And I said to myself, why would I want to have a diesel car? Except that in Nigeria, we don't have, the charging stations around, but it's only a matter of time. I was reading the other day, Burger King is coming into Nigeria. It's only a matter of time before you see Tesla coming to Nigeria, and then Nigeria
Tesla is already in Nigeria. They are selling batteries for inverters. So I know that already. Don't worry about that. So that's what's happening.
And so there's a leading question here. It says here, what is the outlook for Nigeria vis-a-vis the innovation in electric motor vehicles? What's the outlook, knowing that we're a monoproduct society or nation depending on oil?
It's an interesting question. We don't have time. Population is a time bomb. Oil is going away, obsolescence of oil. The internal combustion engine is the assumption that the internal combustion engine will remain the only form of mobility is as good as the assumption that trains will be powered by coal. Newcastle, right? When they say you cannot take coal to Newcastle, Newcastle was the home of industrialization in the UK. Liverpool was the shipping. Those are dead today. So you may not like what I'm saying, but I tell you something, Nigeria has to reinvent itself very, very quickly. And a lot of that work is going on. Whether you spend $1.5 billion rehabilitating a refinery where nobody will buy petrol in 10 years from today, or use the $1.5 billion to innovate and build technological hubs to make your youths as, programmers and all of that, the decision is yours. So those are policy decisions, but that's why we played out for you the policy decisions. You heard the vice president said, we must not regulate, we must regulate out of opportunity and not fear.
Yeah.
So that was a big indicator we saw. So I hear you. But that's it. The fact that there's a threat means there's an opportunity.
Absolutely.
So you investors should buy into the opportunity of the future. The Teslas, the Facebooks, the PayPal, the Visa, MasterCard are in Nigeria. Why do they? Why? They know that these 200 million consumers have to do transactions. These 200 million consumers are not going to use checkbooks anymore. They're going to be using their cards, and if at all they will not even use their cards, they will use any type of payment system. That's the future, and that's where you invest, and that's where you're going to make returns that are better than inflation.
Thank you, sir. I have a question from Kayode Fasasi. He says, what is your view on the proposed investment of 1.5 billion refurbishment of the PHC refinery by the federal government? He says, for me, it's like fetching water from a basket or using a basket.
But like I said, Farid Zakaria said, for a country like Nigeria and Africa, you have to, every day when you take the newspapers, there are 3 columns. One column is stop doing dumb things. 2, start doing smart things. 3, start doing modern things. So when you see a headline like that, you ask yourself, is this decision a dumb decision? Is it a smart decision? Or is it a modern decision? After every day, I do that exercise every day, and I tick, and out of 7 or 8 decisions I see, at times I get 5 that are dumb. I get 1 that is smart and 1 that is modern. So it's up to you to decide. To me, it sounds more like a dumb decision, but it's a very expensive dumb decision. $1.5 billion is a lot of money.
And it's the same thing with the road construction. Someone is asking on your view on the road construction from northern Nigeria to Republic of Niger of Niger. Does it have any economic importance to us as a nation?
Well, I think that it's better for the smugglers to use the road so we can see them than going through the bush. So there's nothing wrong with the road going through the Niger. In any case, the Niger president just won the Mo Ibrahim Prize for good governance. So after so many years of having problems in Niger, we are now beginning to see some light at it. In any case, we need them because Boko Haram is coming from Niger, coming from Cameroon, coming from Chad. So we need to open up those places.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you so much. We have so many questions that we can't take, so I don't even know when we're going to. But we can
do them offline. You can send them and we can respond to them.
Okay.
We'll send them the presentation.